Today we're making royal icing for decorated sugar cookies. For this recipe, you're going to need 6 tablespoons of meringue powder, 2 teaspoons of clear vanilla. I prefer this kind because it doesn't give my icing a brown tint, but you can use any flavoring you'd like. You also need a 2-pound bag of powdered sugar, 3/4 of a cup of warm water or room temperature water, and 2 tablespoons of light corn syrup. I'm also going to be using a hand whisk for this. Now, meringue powder is essentially dehydrated egg whites. So the first thing we're going to do in this process is rehydrate them. To do that, we're going to add our 6 tablespoons to our mixing bowl, along with a 1/2 cup of our warm water. Now, I'm going to reserve a 1/4 cup just in case I need it later. Once that's been added to the bowl, I'm going to add my 2 teaspoons of clear vanilla. Now I'm going to whisk these ingredients together by hand until we get a nice foamy texture on top. We really want these to have a nice consistency. So after about 45 seconds to a minute, we are all done with that step. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add in our 2-pound bag of powdered sugar. Now, if you prefer to sift your powdered sugar, you can. I haven't had any issues with this, so I just dump mine right into the mixing bowl. Next, we're going to add our paddle attachment to our stand mixer. Now, I always say not to use the whisk attachment because that can sometimes incorporate too much air into our icing. We do want it to be nice and fluffy, but overmixing your icing can result in a sticky icing that doesn't dry completely, or it might dry with a super fragile texture. So I'm going to use the paddle attachment for this. When you turn it on, the first thing that's going to happen is your icing is going to start to clump together. You haven't done anything wrong. Don't panic. We're going to go back to that 1/4 cup of water that we've reserved from earlier and pour about half of it into the mixer as it's going on low. This is going to help it come back together and sort of start to smooth out. I'm going to put my speed here up to about a level 4. And we're going to let it mix until it starts to come together. After about 30 seconds, you can see that it's nice and smooth, but it does still have a sticky texture. So we want to make sure that we're mixing it more than this. I'm going to go ahead and take all of that extra powdered sugar off the edges just to make sure that it doesn't come on the top of my icing toward the end of this process. Now that it's all incorporated, I'm going to flip my mixer to about a speed 6, and I'm going to mix it for about 2.5 minutes and just let it go. As it is going, it's going to start to increase in volume. So you're going to notice that icing start to come up toward the edges, and what we're looking for is a really nice fluffy texture. It's been a couple of minutes of mixing, so I'm going to go ahead and check on it. It does look a lot fluffier, and you can see it's all really come together, but that icing isn't holding on to the spatula, so it's not ready yet. That one portion fell off, which means it is not stiff enough for our cookies. I'm going to let it go for just a little while longer, and next time I check it, what I'm looking for is for the icing to stay on that spatula. And I'm also looking for stiff peaks. So right here, when we lift up our icing, you can see that it is at a perfect stiff peak. It is not falling off of that spatula, which means it is nice and light and fluffy. Here I'm scraping down the sides of the bowl because I am going to add those 2 tablespoons of light corn syrup. This step is optional, but it is going to give your icing a little bit of a softer bite. It can also add a little bit of a shine to your icing, so that way when your cookies are finished, they can have a little bit of a shine to them. We're going to put the mixer back down, and then we're going to mix for just about 20 to 30 seconds until all of this is incorporated nicely. You can see here that the consistency of the icing has not changed. It is still thick. It is still holding onto the spatula, but you can see that it just has a little bit of a creamier texture, which is going to give your cookies a softer bite. This is still going to allow you to stack your cookies. The icing is still going to dry hard enough for you to be able to move them around, but it's just going to give it that little bit of extra shine that you want and a softer bite. You can store this icing on the counter, but I prefer in the fridge for up to 2 weeks. Make sure you cover it with some cellophane wrap or an airtight lid, and then I always like to throw a damp washcloth or tea towel on top. If you found this tutorial helpful, be sure to subscribe to my channel, and if you want to learn how to decorate beautiful sugar cookies at home, visit my website graciemayscookieco.com for online classes.